In this episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction to the third episode in Survivor's 50th season titled Did You Vote for a Swap? Question mark. Let's get into this episode. You may notice a somber tone coming from me tonight because one of my favorite players was voted out of the game tonight. A very sad night for Q Nation, Q Army, but we will stand tall and rebel against this season. This is the last episode I'm watching because Q is not on my TV screen anymore. No, I'm just kidding. Super sad to see Q go tonight, though. And, coming into the season, I didn't have high expectations for Q in this season specifically. I think he was pretty fried off the bat. I kept thinking, he'd be first or second boot. To get as much Q as we did tonight, I mean, not even tonight, but just in general, 3 episodes of Q, come on. We're signing up for that every time. It's just tough circumstances and certain people making stupid decisions, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I mean, when I started this podcast, I was podcasting about Survivor 46. One of the first episodes I ever did was talking about how Q is one of the best television characters of all time. I think next time he's on, let him cook. I think people have been saying Q for every All Star season. I'm down, and not to break the fourth wall here, or whatever. Q was at the UFC event with the Survivor people this weekend. He knew his boot episode was coming up, and he's just out there. Like Q don't give a f, and you got to respect that out of Q. It's just it hurts. It does hurt to see Q go like this, and we'll get into the tribal council of it all. But another overall solid episode of Survivor 50. I think, in my opinion, this is probably the worst episode so far, but that's a pretty high bar. And there was a lot of fun stuff in this episode actually, but just because my boy got voted out, I don't know who I'm going to root for anymore. Now I still have some favorites out there, but some of them are in some deep water, which we'll get into anyways. Starting off episode 3, we have Rick. Obviously, this is something we're meant to care about, of Rick planting this fake idol clue at Tribal. I think this is definitely going to come back up again. The question is when and how, because we get the whole ruse bit that, I think some people out there were questioning, did Christian take that fall on purpose? Was it an accidental fall that he turned into being able to let Rick let him plant that let him plant that clue? I didn't really, I felt like, to me, Christian's too, I don't know. I kind of just thought, like, either way, it doesn't really matter that much. But it was a whole scheme by them, and Christian's like, oh, yeah, like, tribal council gets me all skeeved out. If, obviously in the moment, they're not thinking that he's doing this to plant a fake idol at tribal council, or to let Rick plant a fake idol at tribal council. But, like, I don't feel like that's really a realistic thing because he's been to so many tribal councils and he was never falling over. But be it as it may, what I caught here was Rick saying that they were like Frank Ocean. Did I hear that right? I did try and do a little bit of research. I'm off Twitter for this season just because I don't want to get spoiled when it happens. But I think Rick said Frank Ocean in terms of, like, bro, Frank Ocean's one of the greatest R&B artists of all time. He's not no fucking bank robber. Don't be disrespectful, my boy. And maybe he's talking about like Billy Ocean or something. Like, I'm sure in Ocean's 11, that's one of the last names. I mean, I've watched all the movies, but if you said Frank Ocean, don't you dare be disrespectful, Rick. And I like you, Rick. I didn't like you in your first season, but I like you better. So hopefully he didn't say Frank Ocean. Let me know. Let me know down below in the comments if I'm just hearing ghosts, seeing ghosts. But yeah, more Rick and Christian content. Very strong start to the season for both Rick and Christian. We're getting a lot of them on our screen, a lot of Christian in the first 2 episodes, especially. And I think we're gonna be seeing a lot more of them. I think, well, we'll see about Rick, but Christian seems to be in a pretty good spot right now. So that is what it is. Kind of that post Orange Tribal Council, really the only scene we get of the original tribes before we head to the. Well, no, there's actually more going on where Christian is trying. They sense a swap somehow from this message at the tree mail, which I did not get swapped from that message at all. But they knew that maybe a swap's coming, maybe a change is coming, because Christian is trying to say that he's trying to, well, we were confirmed this episode that there's a 4-person alliance between Christian, Emily, Rick, and Sari, which we didn't really know the dynamics of that tribe. It seemed like Joe was on the outs, but, like, where was Joe within it all? Seems like Ozzy has Sari, so Joe would probably be the next person gone. But Christian wants to tell the alliance if there is a swap, so if they're with Aubrey, they know she has an idol. And so I thought initially Christian did a really good job of playing this beautifully, where he's just talking with Rick, and him and Rick are number ones right now. But he's like, maybe you should be the one to tell everyone that you found it because you're the idol guy. And that kind of, I love that out of Christian. Makes him look less suspicious in terms of finding the idol and being a threat. Put it back on Rick. He's finding idols again. If he needs to push that button, I don't think he's going to want to push that button, but if he needed to. So I thought that was a beautiful play by Christian that I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about tonight. And so they tell Sari, Christian pretends looks shocked, and they couldn't tell Emily at the tribal council, or before the tribe swap, which becomes a big part of this episode. And yeah, I think we'll get into it when Christian goes to tell her, but you got to find time. You don't have 2 seconds to say it. I guess those mornings are short. I think they're up early to go do the challenges and stuff. But yeah, I thought that was pretty poor play. And I would tell it seemed like Emily was more insulated in that group than Suri. But apparently Suri's just found herself safety once again. Like fucking crazy, 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 crazy. So we have to talk about this tribal swap. Now, before we do that, the players get to the mat, and it is one of the most abhorrent, cringy, terrible scenes I've ever watched in Survivor history of Jeff doing a rap about tribe swapping and dropping your buff. And the players, you can just tell. On someone's face, you could just tell, like, oh my god, he's doing this again. Because if you go back to season 48, the chicken and the waffles song, that's the stuff that when you tell your friends to go watch Survivor and they turn it on and they see this, they're never turning that show back on again. Like, let's be for real, bro. That was disgusting, cringe. We need to erase our memories of that. And I'm calling out all the players. You have to call Jeff on his BS. You're the returners. You're the people he likes. If you have these people doing this to him, it's like, come on, guys, or come on, Jeff, shut up. Like, no one wants to fucking. I'm sorry for cursing and being vulgar, but like, this really is what deters Survivor from being a great show. I'm sorry. And if kids love this, 6, 7, and all that, I don't care. They don't. Kids would find this very cringy. So I don't know who this rap scene was for. This was one of the worst abhorrations of Survivor history, and let's just put that behind us. I'm trying to rack my brain on who called it out because there's somebody that you could just see on their face, like, oh my god, he's really doing this. I think it might have. I don't even know who it was. It might have been Charlie. I don't know. One of the worst scenes in Survivor 50 probably will go down in infamy for how terrible it is, like the chicken and waffle song. I'm sorry about that rant, but that really pissed me off. And I'm watching with my sister, who's a recent Survivor fan, and she's got to watch this now. Like, this is season 50. Save us. I know you're having fun. It is what it is, but like, oh, it was horrible. Okay. Anyways, let's get on with the tribe swap, which actually is one of the more interesting swappings where they're still in their tribes. They know there's gonna be a swap like that. Kind of, what is it? 5 minutes before they know they're gonna swap. Maybe even not that. That's when Christian decides to tell Emily, "Hey, I gave the idol to Aubrey." And Emily takes that with like, "You're telling me right now," which I think for a lot of the fans out there, and for myself included, besides her actual vote tonight, I was Team Emily. Like, Emily's just fun TV. She was great tonight. Um, but she questions this decision. Like, now's the time to tell me. And yeah, I'd be sussed out at that. But also, you have to realize, I think it's kind of a 50-50 thing. Like, you have to realize, yeah, he's telling you right now, but he's also couldn't tell you before. Like, it's a good time to tell someone. I think it's kind of a weird proposition. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think you have to loop in Emily if you want her to be safe. So I think overall is the right decision by Christian, and it will backfire on him slightly, but we'll get into that. So we have some interesting switch ups here, back into 3 tribes of 7, and really we kind of get to spend some time with each group, see what's going on, some big emotional moments we'll talk about. So on the Teal tribe, we have actually, I think I should pull these tribes up, but this is the tribe, the Teal tribe we spend with first. This is the tribe with Coach, Colby, Joe, Chrissy. I'm looking this up. I'm sorry, but basically the first thing we get is the Honesty and Integrity Alliance, which I'm surprised did not come together faster on this season, where you have Colby, Joe, and Coach. And Coach says the reason he came back was because Joe preached honesty and integrity in Survivor 48. Blessed be it. I don't even know what to say to that. We got if this drew Coach back out of the waters, good job, Joe. And Joe is just so fun to exist in this season. He's hilarious. But the split here initially is three people from the original Teal tribe, three people from the initial Purple tribe, and then Joe. So Joe theoretically would be the swing vote, but now you already have cross tribal alliances. I didn't personally think that the original tribe numbers would factor much into here, especially with pregame connections and pregame opinions and who you want to work with. And there was apparently a Zoom call, which I'm curious. I'm dying to find out what the pregaming was like for 50, but I'm worried about finding out about the results. If you know, you know. But yeah, so on the Teal tribe, joining those three of the honors, honesty, integrity is Chrissy, like I mentioned, Tiffany, who's barely been on the fucking show, Aubrey, and Genevieve. So Aubrey and Genevieve kind of were at odds in episode 1, I believe, and now here they are on this beach. So we got that initial setup of that trio being a thing, the Honesty and Integrity Alliance, and I think a lot of people were expecting that alliance to happen. So I'm not surprised to see it take course here. The really interesting thing is we learned that Coach and Chrissy have a relationship, some sort of working relationship, where Coach wants to tell Chrissy, "Hey, people in our last tribe are getting a little too screwed up with you talking too much, and I think you need to like tone it down a little bit," which I think Chrissy realized is a friend moment out of Coach trying to help her, but it does hurt her to hear that about herself. And obviously, we get a little bit of background about her kind of struggles since Survivor, obviously surviving a cancer scare and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think just in general, overall, it's really hard to root against most of these people on Survivor, or most of the people on Survivor 50. They're all here for something, and there's one or two certain people who I'm not really fans of, but we can get into that when we get into that. But that was a nice moment for Chrissy, and Chrissy hasn't really been much on the show. I thought for sure she was cooked headed into the swab just tonight, and she still potentially could be. I think some things are breaking her way though with a little bit of a feud, which we'll get into later. So we go to the new Sela tribe, the Orange tribes. This tribe has Rick and Sari from the original tribe, D, Jonathan and Charlie from the Teal tribe, oh, and Camilla. So that's 4 person out of 7, so easy majority there. And then Rizzo, the lone member from original Vatu. And what I loved here was something that recently related to me a lot, where Rizzo says he met Sari when he was at 18 at a casting call. Your boy, me, just went to the Mohegan Sun Connecticut Idol search in Connecticut. I think I said that already, but 2 weeks ago, and I waited an hour and a half to meet Suri, only to be told right when I was right going to meet her that Sri was leaving, and then she left with Jared. The whole gang left, didn't get to meet her. A very tough scene, and if anyone is ever watching this from that Connecticut Idol search and was in line with me, we deserve one, man. That was tough. Waiting almost 2 hours for the actual idol, then you have to go do a separate line for Suri. It's a U shape. Bruce is talking on this side, so Rizzo, good for you. You got to meet her because I did, and I'm salty. Okay, but it is what it is. So Sari is the seemingly early target here with Jonathan and Dee saying that we got to get her out before she makes the merge because she's dangerous, which seems like a faux pas because they'll probably be eating out of the cup of her hand like next week, just like everyone else was on Sela Tribe. What else? There was, oh yeah, so a friend told Dee before the season, if you're with Sari, you have to get her out. Is that the great Brandon Donlin? Is that the great Killian Albandian? I think it's probably one of those two people, but that's an interesting pregame thing. I love the pregame of it all. It's just you have to accept that there's pre-gaming happening and then there's alliance scheming and stuff like that. So I'm very curious to see what happens here on the Sela Beach moving forward, where Sri is initially the target, but I think that could swap to Rizzo pretty easily, especially with some events that happen in a couple minutes. So on the Pink Tribe, we have our group that will eventually go to Tribal Council tonight. We have Angelina, Q, Stephanie, from the original Vatu, Christian, Emily, and Ozzy from the original Sela, from the original Callow. So Mike seemingly a swing vote there, but like we mentioned before, the original tribal alliances don't matter, especially when you have three people from the same exact season playing on the same beach, which is Angelina, Christian, and Mike. Obviously, Mike has given cameos to both Angelina and Christian. Christian was in White Lotus, despite the episode not mentioning it tonight. He just didn't have a talking role like Angelina, but he was in the background over the shot. So Obviously, that's a pretty boring tribal group, in my opinion, especially with Q without a vote. That just really leaves them as a rudderless ship. Like, you're going to have to suck up to the David versus Goliath people, which I wonder if that'll happen later on and force a 3-3 tie to save somebody. So annoying that this screwed my boy over, but we are what we are. And so initially, it looks good for my rooting interest because I don't really care about the David versus Goliath people enough. I mean, I like everyone in the season, but it would be nice to see that conglomerate split up. All well, not after tonight. I was going to say all three. The only trio still in the game from the seasons is that because you had season 48 with Camilla, Kyle, and Joe. Kyle's out of the game. Season 46 with Tiff, Charlie, and Q, and Q's out now. So there's only two 46ers left, two 48ers left. We still got three David versus Goliath people left. So interesting that that move was made tonight, but we can definitely get into that for sure. So initial vibes, Emily, Ozzy, and Q link up, and Q drops his cancel Christmas. He wants Christian to cancel Christmas, I think, um, which, you know, should mean something to me. That hurt. Whatever. We didn't get nearly enough Qs we should. Um, but it should seemingly have votes, easy money with those three, and pulling Stephanie pretty easily, which I guess Q and Stephanie have become number ones, being the two holdovers from the Batu tribe. I guess that makes sense. I don't know if they're actually like number ones. I think Stephanie's number one is Kobe. It be as it may. Emily is a fucking disaster. She is just all over the place. She wants to spew about Christian giving the idol to Aubrey, which she tells everybody, and then she has to go back and tell Christian. She told everybody, and Christian's reaction was hilarious. I'm feeling like freaking out, like he's just like, I have to forgive her, and they obviously have a pregame relationship as well, playing Blood on the Clock Tower and all that. If you know, you know, I'm really pulling out some references tonight, but yeah, Emily's all over the place, and I think Emily's just here for fun. Like, if you listen to Emily's pregame interviews, she does not really think she can win the game, so she just wants to have the most fun possible, which, if you want to do that, you wouldn't do what you did tonight. You'd vote out somebody else instead. But we'll get into that. Um, but she was just a disaster, and this was a fun 10 minutes of her just like running around. This was obviously probably the best part of the episode of her just like telling Christian about spilling the beans. And yeah, Emily was great tonight. Probably my favorite character of this episode. Back on the new Teal tribe, Genevieve starts spreading the news that her and Aubrey are on opposite ends of the spectrum here, playing different games. Now, I thought she did a good job with this of coming into a swap, and you have someone you don't want to work with, so you put that out there as like a free target. I think you don't tell everybody though, and the way they showed it to us, she told everybody. Joe, the big three of Joe, Coach, and Colby were like kind of on board with that. Like Colby's like Aubrey's still gonna be a problem. Coach was down for that. Chrissy was like interested because she was just found out she was probably on the outs, and we found out through Coach we needed to get the post game interviews that Chrissy would have been the one out the first Callow Tribal Council, which I think a lot of people assume it was. But I think she went a step too far, just telling too many people about this target. I thought she played the idea of it is really good, right? I'm not saying your name. Here's the name I'm saying. It's a direct cause and effect. You don't have to be cagey. I've played some org games. You don't have to give a fake target. You can just say I'm going for Aubrey, and I'm not saying your name. So you can say that, but you can't say that to every single person. And I think she messed up by telling Tiffany, obviously. Tiffany runs it right back to Aubrey. But I don't even think you need to tell Christy. Like, you need to tell three people, and that's it. I think she was doing a little bit too much, in my opinion. But it's fun. We're having fun here. I just thought that was a little bit of a mistake, in my opinion, of telling too many people. I think if you tell someone like Joe that, you just tell the honor and integrity guys that. I mean, you already have Colby in your pocket anyway, so that's an easy relationship to keep. And then just tell Coach and Joe, hey, on our first tribe, I was having a really tough time working with Aubrey, and I want her out. Then you have four, and you're good. And then they let them do the work for you. But I don't know. I thought Genevieve was doing a little bit too much here. And of course, it gets back to Aubrey through Tiff. So I guess Tiff really likes Aubrey, and they're working together. So I'm curious to see if the idol comes into play. Maybe a 5-2 vote there, and then they play it and get somebody else out. We'll see. But yeah, Aubrey finds out, of course, because Tiffany spills the beans. So back to the new Stila tribe, we get one of the more interesting scenes of this um, episode with Charlie and Rizzo. Now, I have to say, when the season 50 cast was announced, and I have to just review this little nugget because I don't know, I just feel like it's important information. I looked at Rizzo's Instagram because everyone, if you're in the know of who's going out for 50, you know who Rizzo was. And I looked at Rizzo's Instagram and I noticed one Charlie Davis was following him. And I always thought that was an interesting piece of information to like parse for later. And we get the scene from last week when they're on the next week on, they're together sitting on the bench like thick as thieves. So I personally just was under the belief that Charlie and Rizzo had pre-gamed a little bit, just due to being similar age, similar builds, similar type of players, almost, well, not similar type of players, but it seemed like that would be a thing to me. And that's been in my head for months and months, and now it's playing out on screen. Charlie wants to potentially work with Rizzo, except there's this awesome scene of one thing he said last night where they cut back to last night. Rizzo is saying he was number ones with Sophie Liberty or Belardi, but he didn't vote for her at the end. And Charlie's like triggered from that, where he's like, Maria did that to me. So he's got an eye out on Rizzo and doesn't want him to get a jury seat, which is crazy that, they seemingly have a connection, but then after that, it's like cooked. And it's a really awkward scene of Charlie just laying there and him being like, "I didn't cost her the win though," Maria did to Charlie when Charlie's just sitting right fucking there. And Charlie must have want to like bash his head in at that point. You got to feel for the kid. I mean, I'm not the biggest Charlie supporter. He is from Boston, so I respect that because he's local to me. But yeah, I don't know. That was a scene, and then Charlie wants Rizzo out, so I guess that's we're looking at a potential Rizzo or Sari boot for that tribe if we move forward with that. So continuing on, we have the immunity challenge. It's the classic blindfold challenge. Not as many, hits and stuff as the usual one. Kolb looked like he almost caught a concussion, and I was actually worried Kolb was gonna get removed from the game, where he's like has like CTE on the ground. He hits his head and he's like doesn't know where he is. It looked like maybe a little minor concussion there. Um, but the new Sela tribe wins the challenge, runs away with it, and then the Teal group wins second. So pretty obvious. I mean, me and my sister are both saying it that the Purple Tribe would probably go to Tribal Council and Emily would be involved tonight in who goes home because that's just how the episode was leading up to being with the dynamics not being touched upon really. I'm gonna the Chalky for that one, but expected result. And so we go back to camp, and I feel like the camp scenes before the tribals have been sort of lackluster in my opinion, where usually you get the scramble. I'm kind of waiting for shit to hit the fan, where maybe like this supposed Zoom call is just like predetermined who's going out in every scenario. Um, but I don't know. It just seems like they aren't really putting much stock into that, which is fine because you have a lot of character moments to show. However, there is some decent stuff here. Mike says he's going to vote Stephanie right to her face. I was like, what the hell is going on here? But it turns out he's a little bit smarter than that. He's just telling her that so he can vote Q out and not make a mess with Q being a disaster, which sort of makes sense if you know Q. If he knows he's the target, he's going to flip shit. So decent play out of that. I thought for a second there would be a chance Christian would flip, but it's pretty solid that the David versus Goliath 3 is going to stay together. So it's really just, are they going to vote for Q or are they going to pull like a secret vote and vote for Stephanie? And it doesn't matter because at worst it's tied, and then like someone would have to switch over. It would be a complicated ass tribal. We get to tribal. They're all voting Angelina supposedly. Q, Stephanie, Emily, and Ozzy are supposed to be voting for Angelina. Q bluffs a double or extra vote, which I don't really think was necessary, but it doesn't even matter. I think he was cooked regardless in this one. And they vote out my boy, 5-1. Q is gone from the game. Fourth person voted out, Survivor 50. Just very unfortunate circumstances. I already kind of talked a lot about thoughts on Q and how the season will miss him, but he's out the door. And he asked Ozzy on the way out, "Was this you?" Ozzy, you scumbag. I don't know. It was sad. I thought maybe something else would happen, but we're not that lucky. It's Q. He's the fourth person voted out. Bullshit. Anyways, yeah, so that's where we leave off on episode 3. What did you guys think of episode 3? I think they had some strong moments, but probably the weakest episode for me just so far personally. Obviously, still great content, still Survivor Season 50. So, as always, my top 3 players to win and top 3 players out next. So I have 2 really strong contenders for players to win. I got Rick number one right now, and I got Emily number two. Just a great week for Emily. Number three, I was kind of struggling because I think Christian is another easy shoe in, but I feel like he was kind of undermined this episode by Emily. So I'm gonna go with Colby as number three. Seemingly consistent. You know, it's been, I think his premiere was probably his best episode, but he's kind of still has that consistent content. He's in a good spot, so I'm going with Colbster for number three. Top three players out next. So we have three tribes. I picked one person from each tribe. In the new Steeler group, I think Rizzo is just cut bait. I think it's him coming on him versus Suri, and Suri wins those types of battles. So unfortunately, I think Rizzo is cooked there. On the tribe we just saw go to tribal council, I think Stephanie is cooked because she was the only one who didn't vote with them. Unless they're trying to pull some crazy shit, it's the David versus Goliath. People are not going to fuck Ozzy, and they probably won't vote out Emily. So it's probably just Stephanie, which would be a very, very, very boring episode if that's the case. And on the Tia tribe, I think Genevieve goes. I think Aubrey might play the idol and splash on Genevieve. I just think she was doing too much, and I think that was kind of shown to be like Aubrey's going to win this battle. And I've been kind of getting those clues that Aubrey's going to win this battle. I'm totally wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong because Genevieve's one of my favorites still left in the season. But that's where we'll leave it for season 50, episode 3. It looks like next week we're going to be seeing Zach Brown. So it should be a great time on Survivor. Episode 4. Can't wait to talk about it to you next week. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. We'll be back every week with Survivor episodes post the show. I'm going to try and get these out as soon as possible, so they're available as soon as possible. And yeah, expect more movie content, TV shows. I'm going to catch up to live shows. So I think the next one we'll be doing week to week episodes will be Daredevil, and then whatever else is after that. But catching up on some old stuff, ranking on a TikTok and doing tier lists here and there. Just it's whatever. It's a mishmash of everything, sports, and we got the NBA playoffs coming up, UFC numbered events, everything like that. So make sure you stay tuned to the Dubcast. Would appreciate a subscribe. We hit 100 subscribers, so thanks to all the subscribers who watch every video and people who subscribe. I really appreciate you. It's been a almost 2 year grind. We get to 100 before 2 years, so truly grateful. I'm probably gonna keep saying this on other reviews, but hard work does pay off. So I really appreciate you guys out there subscribing and watching these videos when you don't know who the hell I am. I'm just a random guy preaching about random shit. So love y'all. I'll leave y'all at that. As always, be easy, y'all.